Okay, we're now going to look at properties of real numbers, and the first one is the commutative property, and there are two versions of the commutative property. There's the commutative property of addition and the commutative property of multiplication. Now when I see the word commute, I think of someone driving to work and they are moving from home to work. The word move is the word I want you to associate with the commutative property. And this says when I add or multiply, I can move the numbers around. A plus B equals B plus A would be the commutative property of addition, and A times B equals B times A is the commutative property of multiplication. Now these are properties when I represent them with variables, and when I substitute numbers in, like 8 times 7 equals 7 times 8, that it would then be an illustration or example of the property at work. Now I want to make an important comment here, and that is that subtraction is not commutative. And we saw that earlier in the class when we talked about the word less and having to be very careful with subtraction. If you have something like 8 minus 5, you get positive 3. But if you switch the numbers around, 5 minus 8, you do not get the same thing. You get negative 3. It's still got a 3, but it's off by a sign. If we have 11 minus 7, we get positive 4. And 11 minus 7 equals negative 4. And again, not the same total, but it's the same number, but opposite in sign. And that's important for something we're going to do later on in the course, which we're going to call the negative 1 technique. But you just need to know right now, subtraction is not commutative, but addition and multiplication are. And it turns out that division is not commutative either. Okay, the associative property. If I think of an association, that is a group. I belong to a few groups or associations, and that word kind of really works out here. This says I can group the numbers as I want. If I group A plus B and then add on C, that is the same thing as A plus then grouping B plus C. Notice A, B, and C stayed in the same order, but it's where the parentheses are, how I grouped them, that is different on each side of the equation. On the left now for multiplication, we're going to have AB grouped together times C. That is the same thing as A times the product BC. Now, the additive identity. If you think of an identity, your identity is who you are. Adding an identity, additive identity, is adding something to find out who you are, to look in the mirror. A plus 0 equals A. We say 0 is the additive identity. And if you want to find who you are looking in a mirror and you need to multiply by something, you want to multiply by 1 to see A on the other side. And so 1 is considered the multiplicative identity. In mathematics, the word inverse is always associated with the word undo. And if we want to add to undo something, that would be adding the opposite. A plus negative A undoes the addition to cancel it out and give you 0. If you want to multiply to undo something, you want to multiply by the reciprocal, and this time it doesn't cancel out to 0, it cancels out to 1. The final property I want to show you is that of the distribution or distributive property. If you have a number in front of a parentheses, and within the parentheses there is an addition or subtraction problem, that number in front multiplies with both things inside the parentheses. In this case, this is equal to A times B plus A times C. Technically, this is called the distributive property of multiplication over addition. And if there was a minus sign, B minus C, it would be the distributive property of multiplication over subtraction.